Hello, hello. Welcome to Fireplace Gaming. My name's Sai, and today we're going to talk about another addition to the Gaming Greed Naughty List, and that is, surprise, surprise, Nintendo. Now, in case you missed it, Nintendo secured a patent that allows them to control a concept that is incredibly basic that I have no idea how it got passed. But now it's going to have wider effects into the industry, and it's not going to be in a good way. Now, I'm going to try and save your sanity from having to go through this entire document because I went through it, and the word salad and complexity that it goes through is insane. I was only able to stay engaged because of the occasional pictures that they had in them that were kind of entertaining. This guy's made of sausages. But in simplest terms, the patent basically allows Nintendo to now control the concept of being able to summon a companion and control them for battles, whether automatically or manually. That's ridiculous. I would have understood if Nintendo made some groundbreaking mechanic, but what they're literally trying to control is a mechanic that's existed probably way before I was even born. And a quick Google search will actually show that, yeah, a couple of games have actually implemented this mechanic in the 90s, with Final Fantasy being one of the most popular ones with their summoner class in Final Fantasy III. So if anybody has the, understandable right of trying to patent this, it's probably Square Enix, but they're not doing that because they're not idiots. These mechanics are being used by so many other games at this point that it's such a ridiculous thing to try and control it. You've got the Persona series, Shin Megami Tensei, you've got Dragon's Dogma, you've got Diablo, you've got RTS games that have the ability to summon troops and control them. So many games come to mind. It's too much to just name them, and it's just becoming ridiculous, especially since Nintendo had also filed another patent for mounts. So what they're really just trying to do now is they're trying to own mechanics in like virtually every game. Now, many people have rightfully assumed that they're doing this so that they can, assert their dominance over Palworld, especially since they're kind of struggling with that lawsuit. But what's sinister about this is they actually filed this patent a year before Palworld was even launched, which is weird because A, they were either threatened by Palworld, which released its trailers in 2021, which, makes them really insecure as a large company versus an indie studio, or B, they were already planning on controlling these types of mechanics, which makes them even more f***ed up. And we've mentioned the implications for these when it comes to like the existing IPs, right? Very long-running franchises who have already started doing these, like Final Fantasy with Square Enix. However, the biggest problem with this is its potential effects for indie developers, because what it's going to do now is that it's going to deter many developers from trying to implement any innovation when it comes to summoning and even mounting at this point. Because in case you've been living under a rock, Nintendo is an incredibly litigious company. It's one of the most trigger happy when it comes to lawsuits. They've sued over emulators, they've sued over ROMs. There was a time where the shoe was in the other foot though, where Nintendo got sued by parents for Joy-Con drift, but because of the EULA basically preventing users from suing Nintendo and instead making them go through legal arbitration, this case was dismissed by the judge, which is another can of worms that we're not going to get into in this video. Nintendo's such a weird company in such a way wherein instead of trying to make their product better, instead of trying to build on the mechanics that maybe they've made popular through their existing games, they're just going to try and prevent everybody else from entering, which is such a ridiculous notion to be in when you're a company of that size. Funny thing about this is that what does this mean for the US patent system when it comes to reviewing things like this? Generally, when it comes to patents, right, we're talking about newer technology, newer art, maybe newer concepts. And of course, before you even pass things like this, before you even approve a patent, ideally there should be a process of checking, does this thing exist? And if your staff is not familiar with that, then you should be able to go out, consult somebody, a developer, a studio, focus group discussion with many gamers to check, hey, do these mechanics actually exist? And anybody who has ever held a controller for a long period of time will be able to tell you that yes, the ability to summon a monster, regardless of how you're going to arrange their mechanics, is it auto battle or manual or whatever, it's going to exist. It's going to exist with multiple games. It's existed for decades at this point. And it's ridiculous to even allow Nintendo to entertain the thought that they can control it. There may be a silver lining coming out of this when you take a look at the specifics of the patent itself. It's getting very, very specific on trying to determine how you move the character, how do you summon the sub-character, where does the sub-character go when it appears, when it's in battle, when it's not in battle. So there is that level of specificity that might make it apply only to a certain amount of games. But the problem here is that the general act of summoning this sub-character alone can still be used by Nintendo to actually create a case for itself. And yes, it's not going to hold up in court, it's not going to have its legs, but as an indie developer, do you really want this hanging over your head? You're already worrying about the development aspect, the financial aspect, the business side of it, the marketing, right? Trying to make this game succeed. But now you're going to have to think about the legal things as well, because basic things like being able to create your mounts, being able to actually create summons or maybe innovate on the summon mechanic is now lost to you. This is the kind of greed that pisses me off, because at this point, you're not even doing something that's very clever. You're not doing monetization psychology. You're not trying to trick people into buying things that they shouldn't otherwise be buying, or gambling or whatever. No, it's just blatantly saying, hey, can we own this mechanic so that other people can't use it now? It's dumb as fuck and should never have gotten through. And the fact that we're even talking about this right now is super ridiculous, but I felt the need to actually talk about it because Nintendo just did their Nintendo Direct, and it's very, very hard to ever get excited about their newer titles if it feels like it's going to build on some pretty bad industry practices. And it's not really a big deal to me. I've never been that much of a Nintendo diehard fan because the Switch games are kind of expensive to begin with, but now it just kind of feels like I don't want to buy their games out of principle rather than just the financial things, right? I'd love to be able to experience all these amazing titles, but this just doesn't feel right. But this is just my opinion on it. It's just a little bit of a rant. I'm sorry about that. Don't want to get too preachy on this channel, but generally, I don't think that this is something that should be supported at all. Nintendo should not be allowed to keep getting away with this. They should be held accountable for practices like this. And the best way we can do that is by letting them know through our money. But that's on you, right? At the end of the day, can't tell anybody what to do. But hey, let me know what you guys think down in the comments, especially after that Nintendo Direct. Like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. This is Sai from Fireplace Gaming. I'll catch you guys in the next one.